Well, so if I'm not wrong, the topic for this talk will be affectivity and piety. That is, what is there in a relationship between the affective world, that is the world of our emotions, our feelings, the way how we are, and the relationship with God? We can remember that phrase, the sentence of San Josemaria, who used to say that I don't have two hearts, one for loving people and another one for loving God. I love God with the same heart with which I have loved my mother, I love my brothers, and with which I love my spiritual children. He means that he put all his feelings, all his emotions also in his relationship with God, because that relationship must be a living relationship, a relationship with a living God. But now we can, and this will be the approach to this topic in this talk. We can think what can happen when someone has not developed a good capacity of loving, because he's afraid of loving, because he has had bad experiences in love, because he has been abandoned, because he trusted someone and this one didn't behave as he or she expected, or for so many reasons. So she's afraid, or she's very cautious in putting the heart with that person. Will it have some influence in our relationship with God? Let us go to another example that can be still more clear. What about the relationship between God and our parents? God is older than our parents, surely, and He is the font of our paternity. But we have all known first our dad, and then someone told us, God is the Father. Do you want to learn our Father? Probably we don't remember when that moment occurred. Perhaps some parents can remember the moment in which one child after the other, they have done this revelation to them. But we can imagine what might be our interior reaction when someone told us that God is the Father. Probably we will have thought that God is like that, but better, but more affectionate, but more attentive to our needs and so on. What happens instead is the relationship with the Father has not been a good relationship. If a person didn't have a supportive father, or he was abandoned by the father, or anyway, he has not had a good relationship with the father, even if he's a Christian father that goes to Mass every Sunday or even every day. That is not important. The important is the subjective relationship between both of them. If he has been loved and he has developed a trust in this father. In this case, it can happen what last year told me a seminarian. He was speaking to me about some difficulties that he had in his way to priesthood, and then he told me that his father left his mother and the rest of the children when he was a child, and he didn't want to be in relationship with them. So he had not met his father, and he was very upset and very angry with his father. So I told him, well, you have not had neither in any moment that you remember a good relationship with your father. What do you think when you pray our Father? And he responded, Father, I have realized a few times that when I pray our Father, I have to dark the word father, because otherwise I feel a instinctive reaction of reject that person. So for me, God cannot be a father. If we know the importance that divine filiation has for a healthy Christian life, that person has a difficulty for having a Christian life. Even if he's a good seminarian, even if he goes to Mass every day, even if he does mental prayer. But he has a handicap for developing a life of piety because of a problem in his affectivity, because of psychological wound, we can say. Is it impossible to heal those spiritual, those psychological wounds? No, and that is the answer. Unfortunately, I have more or less the answer prepared because I have had to give this very answer to different people through my years as a priest. And probably many of you who are listening to me have also found this situation throughout your lives. So the answer that has served me to propose these people, these wounded people, is: but do you know what a father is? Do you know what your father should have been? Do you realize that you should have been a better father, that you deserve it, and that your life now would be very different if you have had that father? And he said, yes, father. I know the parents of many of my friends. They are stable families. They are not perfect families, but they love each other, and they have supportive fathers. They have fathers that are lovely. They have fathers that love their children. And sometimes I have some envy to say I would like to have had those parents, and in fact, my life now would have been very different. I would not have that sense of lacking that they have, the sense that I needed someone who have loved me, appreciated me, that have given me valoration, that have given me that demanding that I needed, and that is complementary of the affection that usually has a mother. We will go to that after a time. So my proposal to this adolescent, to this young seminarian was: well, you had that father. He was beside you during all your life. Perhaps you have not experienced it in a physical way, but you can go in your prayer to God the Father as the Father that you realize that you need, and that He has been beside you even if you have not seen Him. So go to your prayer and address to Him, knowing that He's perhaps not like your biological father, but with a father that that you know, that you have seen. In that case, he did it. He worked on it, and it helped him to heal not only a little bit his psychology, but also his prayer, because he was realizing that his prayer was not according to what he was hearing in the midst of formation, what he was reading in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and in so many other places. So we need not perfect, obviously, but a healthy affectivity so as to be able to love God in a healthy way. Otherwise, there can be deviations of the spirituality. Sometimes it is ill spirituality. Other times it is simply a spirituality that cannot reach to that union, to that relationship with God, and anyway, a spirituality in which the person does not enjoy completely his relationship with God. So let us go. Obviously, we are going to speak a lot about biography because the affectivity is mainly built in our early years. It is built during all our life, but the core, the basements, the fundamentals of that affectivity is built in the family, in the relationship with the parents. I did mention initially that every education in any way, education in the family, education in the school, education in spiritual direction, or formation in any institution in the church, is a balance between two elements. The first element is affection, and the second element is demanding. And usually in the first stages of the life, what you receive is only affection, because when a baby is in the arms of the mother, of the father, he cannot receive any demanding. It would be absurd that the parents say, hey, don't cry at 3 a.m. in the morning, even if you are hungry. You have to be temperate. Or, hey, you have to do some more effort to begin speaking, even if you are only 6 months old. It is absurd. That demanding would be absurd, and obviously it could be also damaging for the person. A child only receives affection, and when she receives affection, she continues to feel that the world is nice, that I am important, that the people take care of me. And apart from from that, he begins building two concepts that are very important. The first one is confidence. Confidence in the world. I can trust the world because the world is reliable, because the world is giving me what I need. Because if I cry, somebody is going to come to me. Because if I have some kind of pain, somebody is going to calm my pain. Because if I am alone, somebody is going to calm me, to hug me, to ease me. Then, from that security that is very instinctive, we can say that is about the people and about the world, because little by little the child begins working and also begins the exploration of the world. So he can go to the park and he can go to different parts, different streets in the park, and when he gets lost, he sees that the mom is there watching him. So I can explore a little more without being afraid, because I know that my mom is taking care of me. It happens when there is a good mother, a mother which is present and who is present, and then the mother expands, and in the first weeks or months, the important figure is the mother, but little by little, this figure expands, and also the father enters into that education of the boy, and then the brothers, the teachers, the uncles, grandparents, and so on. What happens if the mother is not does not accomplish that role? An example, because there is not a mother. When the child cries, nobody comes. Or because the mother cannot calm the necessities of the child. The child cries, but the mother is not able to calm him down. An example, because she's very cold. Or an example, because there is a mother, but the mother is too busy. And she tries to calm the boy, as she's working on the computer, so she's not hugging the boy, but she's only taking her in one arm while she's working, or she's watching at the television. So there is not a relationship. Then the child interiorizes that the world cannot give me everything that I need, that it can calm me, but only up to a certain point. That is one scenario. A mother that does not satisfy the needs of the child. But there is also a second scenario, that is a mother that is very anguished. And then instead of calming the child when the child is in a needing, what she does is getting also very anxious, and though she transmits that anxiety to the child. And then the child reacts like a escalation, getting still more anxious, because if my mother is so afraid because of my crying, then it must be very important. So she begins crying again, so the mother cries more, and the child, and blah, blah, blah. So what the child understands, interiorizes, is that the world, that even my inner world, is dangerous. It's dangerous because it is able to make anxious even my mother. It can also happen, this is the third scenario, that the mother is hyperprotective. That is, the mother lets the child to explore the world, but only with a lot of guarantees, only with a lot of protection. You can go to the park, but only if it is completely in the day, if I am behind you, if you have a helmet and you have like an astronaut dress in case you fall, in case something comes to you. So what the child interiorizes in that case with an overprotective mother is the world is dangerous. I cannot feel sure exploring the world. So it will be difficult for him, as all those ideas are interiorized, and then they become a part of the personality. The person who feels that the world is not able to calm me down, the person who interiorizes that my feelings are absolutely impossible to control and to calm down, that the world is dangerous, or finally, and it is the most dangerous kind of education, when the mother is not consistent with her response. If the boy comes home with a good news from the school, a good qualification after an exam, the mother can appreciate, can congratulate him, or can blame him, because she has up and downs that happens with people with personality disorders, or with people with alcohol, drugs problems, and so. If she's drunk, she can beat the child, even if he did something good. Or if the child did something wrong and the mother is too tired or is too blue, she does not punish him, and she says, okay, no problem, so take $10 and go and eat something for you. So it is a kind of reward, even if the child took home something wrong. So in this fourth case, what the child interiorizes is that the world is a chaos. There is not something reliable, that I cannot trust in what I do to get a positive answer, or even if I do things wrong, there won't be negative consequences for me. So he cannot build a consciousness, he cannot build some norms for his own life. This has been explained by the theory of attachment, what I have explained up to now. and how all those structures, how all those styles of education, if the person has developed a secure attachment with the mom, with the father, with the family, and so with the world, the adult will have also an open relationship with the world, a secure relationship with the world. Instead, when there has not been that security in the family, the child can become narcissistic, can become an avoidant, or can become a dependent personality, because he will be looking for other for not repeating what he has suffered. And then we arrive to people with difficult personalities, people who have it difficult to relate with other people, people who are very defensive, people who are very aggressive. What happened with them? And how can we manage them? This is especially important in institutions, for example, in which there is life in common. In these cases, that will be my approach. I would say in every case, when you begin a path of spiritual accompaniment with any person, it is important to know that you, as the person who accompany, know the biography of the person, but mainly that every one of us know our own biography, because it has a great influence on the way we behave, on the way in which we relate with other people, with other physical people, but also with God. A person who has experienced from the beginning of his life that the world is not reliable, that no one is able to give me what I need, will have it difficult to relate to God as the one who can satisfy my inner needings. So it will be perhaps for him a theory, but it will be difficult for him to experience that in his prayer. There will be a kind of insatisfaction. It can happen also a person who didn't feel loved in his early years. As I said, because a negligent parent, or because a parent absent, or because a parent that was there but couldn't satisfy. Then he will try, that those situations create a kind of black hole in the psyche, in the affective world. And we can find there people who are very dependent, as example. People who are looking for that love that they have, that they didn't have in their early years, and they will try and absorb that affection from the people that are close to them. They can be a kind of dementors, like those of Harry Potter, that absorb all the soul of the people. What happens? The people who say, nobody loves me, all of them, they can be wrong, they can be right, and perhaps that is the problem. But many times a person who comply that people are not nice to me, that people are not loving, that people are too attentive to their staff but do not take care of the other people. And so many times what happens is that they have that problem, that affective problems in the early years, and they have such a black hole in their psyches that it is not possible for them to feel them. So they are all the time trying to attract, to catch the attention and the love from the other people, and they will be ever insatisfied. So what can we do with those people who didn't develop a good affective world? It can be because of bad education in the early years. I have become with it because it is the deepest part of our affectivity, but it can also happen in other stages of the life, more recent. It can be also a bad experience in the school, a person who suffered bullying. It can be a bad experience with teachers, with a boyfriend. It can be a bad experience in the early years when he began following a vocation in the church. And so, as long as we grow, inevitably we accumulate biographical wounds. That is a reality. And that is part of human nature. We cannot aspire to have a perfect life, a perfect family. I think that no one of us had a perfect father or a perfect mother. And the same happens even in the church. There is not a perfect institution. And part of the vocational maturity that people need is accepting that their institution, their vocation, can be perfect in the sense that it is solid, that it comes in a certain way from God, but all the institutions, even the church and its parts, are composed by something divine and something human, that are all of us. And the human part will also give some kind of imperfection to that institution. So, and that the only being in which that supernatural part and that human part have been perfectly integrated is the humanity of our Lord. Apart from God, nothing is perfect. That's why it has been said a lot of times that the church is Santa et Semper Reformanda. It's holy because it has been founded by Christ, but it has the needing of being continuously renewed because of that human component that can grow always and can always improve. So what happens when we find a person that has had those biographical problems? I don't speak specifically about an important trauma, some kind of abuse, an example that can also let in the person important wounds. What can we do if we ourselves and also the people that come for us for spiritual accompaniment, they tell us those wounds, or we find in them, because of the behavior, because of the way they relate with other people, because of the way that they establish a relationship with God. And then we discover that they had these difficulties. So do we have to rule them out of a vocational path? Do we have directly to take them to the psychiatrist? Do we have to say to take them to a psychologist? Well, let's go little by little. So what happens when we find a person that has suffered this kind of biographical wounds? Is it condemned to have an unhappy life? Fortunately, not. We have the example of Santa Josefina Vaquita. You know the history, how she was kidnapped when she was 5 years ago from her family, and she was sold to different masters of the tribe, and so she was abused in several ways, and finally, when she was about 16, 18 years old, she was bought by a Italian diplomatic, and he took her to his house, and then she had the conversion, and she found her vocation as a sister of the charity, and then she began having a nice relationship with God. The history is so beautiful that at the end of her life, she was asked, what would you do if you found the people that kidnapped you? And she used to say, I would kiss their hands, because if they had left me in the house of my parents, I would not have known God and my vocation. So she said, all my history has a sense. All what I have suffered has a sense because it has led me up to God and up to my vocation. That is the beautiful part of the history, which is more spread. But it does not mean that she didn't have any wound. It does not mean that she didn't have any problem and that she didn't have any consequences of those wounds. It is also told in her biographies that when she was asked to tell her story to the people that used to go to her catechesis, mainly the young people, he used to say, no, I prefer not to speak about that because I suffer when I relive that. And then the superior mother used to tell her, no, do tell it because it will help you to have, it will help the people to know your story, to hear your goodness. So out of obedience, she used to tell her story. But the biographer tells that she was unable to avoid crying as she was telling her story. So it had been healed in some way, but it had not disappeared completely. So when we find some kind of biographical, psychological wounds in the people that we know, we must know that they have to hear that they have to do a work in themselves. First of all, that work begins by identifying the wounds, the cause, and also the people who provoke those wounds. And there must be some kind of reconciliation with that figure. It does not mean that she has to put again in contact with that person that hurted her. Sometimes it will be impossible, for example, if the person has died. Other times it will be imprudent, for example, if the father has begun another relationship or has been physically abusing and so. But for having a serene life, it is important to arrive to forgiveness and to a kind of subjective reconciliation to that person. That is not only a unique decision that you take. It is a path that you have to do in which you will probably find a lot of obstacles. More obstacles if the wound is deeper. Or if the person has greater duty of having taken care of you. In this case, the wounds are deeper also. But then it helps you to heal from that wounds, to realize how much you have grown, both physically and spiritually, because of that wounds. I have heard different stories from people in different vocations that speaking about that classical story, unfortunately, of a father who has abandoned the family. And then the person had to, the mother had to begin working to get money for the family. And I remember specifically two people that had to behave from that moment, even if they were only young adolescents, they have to take the role of the mother of all their siblings. They developed a great capacity of responsibility, of work, of loving, of taking care of the others, and when they finished adolescence, both of them followed a way of serving the other people in a vocation of celibacy. One of them, a vocation of religious life. The second one, a vocation in celibacy in the middle of the world. But after a few years into that vocation, they were becoming a little resentful with their vocation, because they said, I am taking care of a lot of people inside my institution, or the people that come to receive the apostolate or in the institution. But they don't give me back. But they are only asking, and I feel that they are taking advantage of me, but they are not giving to me, or even among them, what they are asking from me. So they were beginning to feel burnt out, overwhelmed, and they were not able to say no. In both cases, I did the same path that more or less worked. First of all, was going to the origin. I repeat, it is important to know what has been the environment in which a person has grown. In this case, the lack of a loving father and the obligation to renounce to adolescence and to mature too quickly. And that is the origin of the wound. But then also it's helped them to see how, thanks to that wound, they have developed the capacity of serving people, the capacity of having a big heart and working a lot, and in such a way that the people that they were serving felt really loved. That is, they have developed the heart of a mother. And they were very happy about that. And they were proud of that heart. And when they realized, I have developed this heart because my father left, and so I have to, not in an automatic way, but with effort and with education, I have developed that heart of a mother. And thanks to that heart, God has called me. And that heart has been the instrument so that I can accomplish my vocation in a way that has been very enrichful for me and very enrichful for the people that came to my apostolate. Up to here, like the first part of Saint Josefina Vaquita, is very nice. But then we arrive to the wound that is still there. She says, I am giving myself to other people, but they are not giving back to me. A mother, a mature mother, a biological mother, but also a spiritual mother, when she's healthy, is able to give even if she receives very few, very little compared with what she does. When you have a mature affectivity, when you have your wounds, but they have been healed, when you have had problems, but you have been able to manage them because you know them, then you are able to do the great resolution that everybody who lives in celibacy, in a vocation, in any kind of vocation, has to accept. I will give in my life much more than I am going to receive. I will receive a lot, and the Lord has promised that we will receive 100 times as we have given in fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, and so, and the eternal life. But we can realize that from a material point of view, from an affective point of view, we are giving more than we are receiving. And probably it can be right, because that's the content of the vocation. But this should be enrichful for you, and that should not be a cause of resentfulness or burnout unless your wound has not been healed, as was the case of these two women who was next to fall into burned out, and even they were asking themselves if it were the problem of the vocation. And that is one of the problems that I have found in people with spiritual wounds that follow a vocation and didn't heal important biographical wounds. That they live the vocation in a way that the more they live the vocation, the more they live the gift of themselves, the more they get psychologically wounded, or the more that psychological wound increases at the point of putting in danger the psychological health of the people. So what did I recommend, though, these two women that came to me in two different points? Take care of yourself. That is, learn to put limits to the people who wants to take advantage of you and of your virtues, and say, I'm sorry, I cannot do it now because I have to rest, because I have other duties. Don't take on your arms all the difficulties or the problems or the pains of all the people who are around you, because now your back is too weak. You have to rest, you have to take care of your own necessities, and then as you mature a little more and you work with those on those wounds, you will be able perhaps to expand your capacities, and you'll be able to serve better the other people. I remember the reaction that had the nun when I said it, because, hey, are you saying that when someone comes to me and asks me, sister, can you make me a favor? I have to say, no, sorry, I cannot. I said, yes, you have understood perfectly. But she said, I cannot, because I am a religious woman. I am a nun. I have to say always yes. That's a problem. There's a very nice book in English that is called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. And we have all to learn to say no in a polite way, in a assertive way, because the first person that God has entrusted us is ourselves. And if we are not okay, if we are not healthy, if we are not taking a happy life, it will be very difficult for us also to have a flourishing vocation. And that vocation might be a cause of suffering. Always, every kind of vocation has a cross, obviously, but has a cross that is healthy. It's a cross that can be integrated in the life and can also enrich my life from a biological, from a psychological, and from a spiritual point of view. If the vocation is hurting me from a psychological point of view, perhaps I am not living the vocation as I should. So as you see, and then I am synthesizing, biography has an influence in the way I relate to God. Biography has a relationship in the way I live my vocation. Biography has an influence in the way I have a relationship with the other people, trying to establish with them relationships of dependence, of avoidance, or exploitation, also depending on how I have learned in the relationship with my parents to relate with the other people. And last point that I wanted to speak about is this linked to those two women, a person who is very voluntaristic or very perfectionistic, a person who works only out of duty. What is usually the reason? You can go directly to the symptom, you can say, and say, hey, you have to slow down, you have to get out of so many duties of your task list or so. You have to live more the abandonment of God. That would be working on the surface A voluntaristic person, a perfectionist person, is usually a person very reliable for you, but usually it's very difficult to work with her because it's so demanding to herself that puts in danger her own mental health, but usually it's very demanding also to the other people. It's not a person that leaves the small details, but a person with that demands that everything must be perfect. Otherwise, it is a disaster. What is the cause of those people? Usually, a perfectionistic father. Not so much, it can be the mother, but usually it's the father. That is a father that only said the child, I appreciate you, I love you, I am proud of you, when you did things perfectly. I only say you, I'm proud of you when you come home with a A+. If it is a A-, I say, that's nice, but a child needs that the father and the mother gives them an unconditional love. Otherwise, what he does is he interiorizes that message by the father. And now it won't be the father that will tell him, you have to be better, better, better. Otherwise, I won't love you. That is the balance that we said between affection and exigency. If the affection is conditioned to exigency and is not unconditional, then the person interiorizes, for loving myself, self-esteem, I have to be perfect. So there is a great effort to do everything perfect, but perhaps if the person is very brave, she can live it for a few years. But sooner or later, it will be impossible for her. She will be exhausted. Or she will be so much in tension that she will suffer a lot and that she will not forgive herself for the defects that she has. And God is the Father. So she will have also a perfectionistic relationship with God. So she will tend from a non-conscious way. She will tend to base her relationship with God out of results. God, I have done all my work plan of life. God, I have got these results in my apostolate. God, I have done this, that. Then you can be proud of me. And so she forgets two things. First, that God loves us always, independently of what we do. God is also demanding. He wants all of us to be saints, to be holy. But he loves us as we are. That's the difference between God the Father and those bad fathers we have spoken about. And the second thing is that God does not want our words. We listen it a lot of times during Lent time. I don't want your holocausts, your sacrifices, your bulls, your lambs, I want your heart. But the heart is uncountable. You cannot do a accountability of how much heart love I have put in relationship with God and with the other people. That is not the language of a perfectionistic person. So she had also to do not only a superficial work on herself. She had to go to the cause of that, to the education that she had received, attention, in her house, in her school, in the early formation of her institution, and then to say, that thing was not false, was not wrong, was incomplete. Now I have to do a work with myself and sometimes also with the institution so that it changes the way of doing the formation so that I put more the accent on love and less in works, so that I realize more and more that God loves me independently of my works. So I will be much happier in my prayer. And with this idea I finished, I will do better my apostolate, because I won't be so demanding with the people. You have to do this, that, moral obligations, plan of life, small details, and so. But I will work more on your heart. Heart is a positive way, and heart is relaxing, and the heart is has never limits. Plan of life, actions, and so are can cause some tensions and have a limit. I have already done all the things that I have now. From now on, it is time for me. I can rest. I can do by myself. Love instead says, I can never finish loving, but it doesn't matter. God loves me. So I have that security. We spoke about that at the beginning. I have that self-esteem that comes from the fact that I know that I have been ever loved by God, even if my parents didn't love me or didn't show me their love as much as I wanted. And so I am not fearful about the world, about myself, about what can happen. So thank you very much. I hope that I have said something that can be useful for you, and perhaps we have some time for questions and answers. Thank